Hello Mouses! With Tony Nicklinson, the man who fought for a long time for the right to die and was toned down by the High Court last week, having died yesterday, and a lot of people on Facebook, Twitter and other parts of the internet saying that just because you're disabled you shouldn't want to kill yourself. I think it's time that we address the right to die. Okay, let's start with the basics. In the UK, suicide is legal and has been since 1963. So you can take your own life. That's perfectly fine in the UK. However, you can't have someone else assist you in that. That is illegal in the UK. That is classed as murder. So the problem here is, what about those people who, due to a disability, cannot actually take their own lives but want to? What about them? Basically, their disability means they are unable to exercise one of their fundamental rights. It is a right in the UK to die. And at the moment, we are saying those people with disabilities, you can't die by another person's hands. And I can understand why the law is like that, because at the moment there are no guarantees that the people are not being killed by family members who just don't want to look after them anymore. And that is a legitimate concern. There are people out there who would kill off a disabled person in their families so that they didn't have what they think of as a burden on themselves. And the law must protect against those people. But surely there are ways to protect against those people. For example, perhaps you have to go for psychological assessment or something like that. We already do that for a lot of medical procedures, where you have to have a psychological assessment before you're cleared to have that procedure. What if we just put something like that in place? It's not the best option. It's still meaning that disabled people have to jump through more hoops than everyone else, but at the same time, it does have a safeguard system. There are other plans, there are other options, there are all kinds of things we could do to make sure that people aren't murdered just because someone else doesn't want to put some effort in. But at the same time, surely those who are disabled and do want to take their own lives should be allowed to do that. There are assisted suicide laws in parts of America, for example, which is something that the High Court seems to have either ignored or not been informed about when they reached their decision, because they mentioned that there's no precedence for assisted suicide legislation anywhere in the world. Well, actually there is. They just either weren't given access to that because no barrister associated with the case that they were hearing was actually able to put that forward. Maybe no one had even found it, or maybe no one looked for it, I don't know. Or maybe they just chose to ignore it because it wasn't suitable in that case. If it wasn't on all fours, as they call it, then they wouldn't have looked at it. So a lot of people, particularly on Facebook, are saying that just because you're disabled, you shouldn't want to kill yourself. And yes, I realise that is a pretty good statement. Yes, just because you're disabled doesn't mean you should want to die, but at the same time, just because you're disabled doesn't mean you get to speak for all disabled people. There are people out there with disabilities that they do not want to live with. And just because one person has a disability doesn't mean they can say to another person with a disability, oh, you should book your ideas up and just get on with life, or oh, you should make the best of it. Because if someone decides that they can't make the best of it, they should have the options that everyone else has. For example, I do have a disability, and I would never say to someone with a disability that is more debilitating than my own, oh, you should book your ideas up and just get on with your life. Look at me, I'm getting on fine. Because that is not fair. Just because I'm lucky enough to get on with a reasonably normal life doesn't mean that everyone else can. I realise that, everyone else should realise that too. You've got to take the person on every aspect of the person. So it's not just physical or mental disability that they've got, but also how it ends up with them, how it affects them and their viewpoint as a result. For example, people who live in constant pain want sometimes to get rid of that pain. I know I do. I have constant pains myself. And thankfully, they're background level. I can pretty much get around them. And on days where it's really bad, I have painkillers. Sometimes the painkillers work, sometimes they don't. But either way, it's not bad enough for me to be totally debilitated by it. But for other people it is. And there is no way that I would say to those people, just suck it up and get on with your life, because I don't know what they're experiencing. I can't therefore speak for them. And people should remember that. So all of you on Facebook who are shouting about these people who want to die because their life has become intolerable, just realise that you're as bad as the people who are out there who post all of those disability inspirational photographs that say just suck it up and get on with your life. Because at the end of the day, you're saying the same thing to this person, saying, oh, you shouldn't want to kill yourself, you should just get on with it. Sometimes you can't. And that's what we've got to remember from this. Some people don't want to, and they should have the right to end themselves from that. Okay, that's all I've got time for today. It's been a bit of a downer, but it's something that we had to discuss. So, until next time, I've been Kirk-Robinson, you've been watching a video, and I'll see you tomorrow.